Today is Tuesday, April 8th. We'll tell you about a wild ride on Wall Street, why markets plunged, spiked, and then plunged again. Also, how President Trump is defending tariffs, and what the U.S. Supreme Court decided about a Maryland man deported by accident. Plus, who just became college basketball's new national champion, why a massive military parade is being planned in the nation's capital, and which new movie is breaking records all around the world. Those stories and even more news coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. It was another day of wild swings on Wall Street. In the end, stocks ended lower, but things went back and forth all day, partly because of what's been called fake news. A post on social media claimed President Trump was considering pausing tariffs for 90 days. Then, when major news outlets like CNBC and Reuters relayed it, stocks started spiking. Well, the White House quickly responded to say that report was not true, and with that, the stocks went right back down again. In reality, President Trump is showing no signs of backing off his aggressive tariffs that are set to actually take effect tomorrow. When reporters asked about some mixed messages out of the White House about whether tariffs are permanent or open to negotiation, Trump said, quote, "They both can be true." He also announced yet another tariff on imports from China since the Chinese government tried to retaliate against the U.S. That latest announcement essentially puts U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports at 104%. Marking a pretty big escalation in the back and forth between the world's two largest economies. Many economists believe the U.S. is escalating a trade war that will lead to higher prices, lower confidence, and potentially a global recession. Whereas the Trump administration believes higher tariffs on other countries will bring more investment, manufacturing, and jobs to the U.S., but that it will take time. For now, President Trump is telling Americans to hang tough. In one social media post yesterday, he wrote, quote, "Be strong, be courageous and patient, and greatness will be the result." Stay tuned. President Trump says for the first time in a decade, the U.S. will have direct negotiations with Iran. The U.S. has a goal of reining in Iran's nuclear program. Trump says Iran will be in great danger if the high-level talks aren't successful. Meanwhile, Iranian officials say there are no plans for direct talks, just indirect ones, with other countries acting as intermediaries. Either way, reports point out how Iran might not be as strong as it was just a few years ago when it bragged about an axis of resistance. And that's because Iranian-supported militia groups like Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon have been weakened by Israel. And on that note, President Trump actually met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, and they spoke about Iran, as well as trade and Gaza, where Israel has stepped up its attacks. Trump says they're working on a new deal to get hostages home. And Netanyahu says they're working on Trump's vision for Gaza, including his Riviera of the Middle East. To be continued. The U.S. Supreme Court has now weighed in on President Trump's immigration crackdown. It decided to let the White House keep quickly deporting accused gang members using a 1798 wartime law. The ACLU had sued, saying the Trump administration should not be allowed to use that law because immigration authorities are mischaracterizing a gang as a military force and illegal immigration as an act of war. Plus, the ACLU pointed to the lack of criminal convictions for many of the deported Venezuelan migrants. But this week, the High Court voted 5-4 in favor of the Trump administration, saying it could invoke the law with limits. It said detainees should have to get notice about being deported and be given an opportunity to challenge their removals before a federal judge. By the way, the Trump administration actually cited that same wartime law when it mistakenly deported a Maryland father, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And this week, he found out he'll be staying in a notorious supermax prison in El Salvador a while longer because a separate legal decision. The U.S. Supreme Court's Chief Justice, John Roberts, blocked a lower court's order that told the Trump administration it needed to have plans to get Abrego Garcia home by today. Roberts paused that deadline temporarily for now, at least until the High Court can look at the case more fully. As we told you last week, the Trump administration says Abrego Garcia was deported because of an administrative error, and that the government can now not get him back because he's not in U.S. custody. Officials are still defending Abrego Garcia's deportation, saying due process does look different for people accused of being criminal gang members. But Abrego Garcia's family members say he has no gang ties. And they aren't the only ones. CBS News reports out of 238 migrants deported to the Supermax prison, 12 were accused of serious violent crimes like murder, rape, assault, or kidnapping. Others had records that included nonviolent offenses like shoplifting and trespassing. and 3/4 of them had no criminal record at all. The U.S. Homeland Security Department has said just because they don't have a rap sheet does not mean they're not also terrorists and gangsters. But their family members say immigration agents have no credible evidence. More court challenges are expected. Remember how we told you President Trump designated English as the official language of the United States? Well, now it seems that designation even extends to weather warnings. The National Weather Service is no longer providing language translations. Experts say the change could put non-English speakers at risk of missing potentially life-saving information about severe weather. They especially have concerns about places like Puerto Rico, where Spanish is the main language for the vast majority of people. Before now, an artificial intelligence company was providing translations in Spanish, Chinese, and 3 other languages. But the 5-year contract for those AI translations cost the government nearly $6 million. So it was terminated as part of the massive government downsizing. Of course, this comes just as spring brings a higher risk of severe storms, something we've definitely seen a lot of this week. In fact, in just 7 days, storms spawned more than 150 tornadoes across the U.S., as well as destructive winds and heavy rain. And even though the actual storms have moved out of the U.S., flooding is still a big concern. In fact, it's some of the nation's worst flooding since Hurricane Helene last fall. Across Kentucky, rivers have swollen to near record levels. Flood danger is also high in several other states like Tennessee, Arkansas, and Indiana. And it could be weeks before the waters recede. More news still ahead. But first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy can feel like a big investment, but I believe just like you probably invest in keeping up with your physical health, it's worth it to invest in your mental health too. And just like with working out, there are now high-quality but more affordable options you can get from home. If cost is what's holding you back, let me tell you about BetterHelp. You pay a flat fee for weekly sessions that save you money compared to traditional in-person therapy. And either way, honestly, in my experience, therapy pays for itself because I can run a better business and live a better life overall when I have positive coping skills, appropriate boundaries, and am overall able to feel like my best self more often. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. It's convenient. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life, too. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. The Florida Gators are the NCAA's new college basketball champions. They beat the Houston Cougars in last night's nail-biter championship game, 65-63. It's their 3rd national championship, but their first in 18 years. And this time, the victory happened because of an epic comeback. The team was actually losing by 12 points in the second half and still managed to turn things around. With that, the Florida Gators are now on top of the college basketball world. The team is headed back to the Sunshine State for a big championship rally today. A separate victory rally was held yesterday in Connecticut, celebrating the new women's national champions, the Yukon Huskies. An American YouTuber is now facing criminal charges for trying to contact the world's most isolated tribe. Authorities say he traveled to India's North Sentinel Island in the Indian Ocean and took video. He allegedly blew a whistle and left a coconut and a Diet Coke can as offerings to indigenous people who have been isolated there for thousands of years. The people in this tribe use spears and bows and arrows to hunt the animals on the island, and they're known to be deeply suspicious of outsiders. So they also use those spears and bows and arrows to attack anyone who lands on their shores. Visiting the island is illegal as a way to protect the native people's way of living and protect them from modern illnesses since they don't have immunity. So the American YouTuber was arrested. His lawyer has said he will deny the charges, but if found guilty, he could face 5 years in prison. President Trump is planning a military parade through Washington, D.C. White House officials have told news outlets it will happen on June 14th, which is Trump's 79th birthday. But they say besides celebrating the president's birthday, the parade will mark the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. It will apparently stretch almost 4 miles from the Pentagon to the White House. The U.S. Army would not go into specifics, but said it was working with several government agencies to make the celebration a national-level event. But there is some criticism across both sides of the aisle over how much money this kind of parade could cost. And even backers of President Trump, like Senator Lindsey Graham, say they worry about the parade coming off like a Soviet-style display of military might. But Trump has been talking about wanting this kind of parade since even before he was sworn in for his first term. Either way, Washington, D.C.'s mayor says the planning is still in the early stages. New changes have taken effect at the U.S. Postal Service. They're mostly organizational changes, like trying to get mail to be processed and delivered in the same region. But it also includes some major downsizing. Critics have brought up concerns, especially for rural areas, since the USPS is responsible for delivering important items like checks and medicine. But the USPS says it's just becoming more efficient, and about 14% of Americans could actually notice their mail getting delivered faster. That said, for 11% of people, delivery times will be longer, closer to 5 days for first-class mail. This is just part of a 10-year plan that will ultimately cut jobs, replace trucks that keep breaking down, and add a new fleet of electric vehicles to the mix. The next phase of the plan rolls out in July. A Minecraft movie is breaking all kinds of records at the box office. It brought in $157 million on its opening weekend just in the U.S. and Canada. That's the biggest opening of any movie since last summer. And it was the biggest opening ever for a movie based on a video game, even ahead of Super Mario Bros. It kind of makes sense since Minecraft is the best-selling video game of all time, bringing in more than 140 million players a month. But Minecraft is not the only video game adaptation to do well lately. We mentioned Mario Bros., but there have also been 3 hit Sonic the Hedgehog movies since 2020. And on TV, games like Fallout and The Last of Us have become critically acclaimed hit shows. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, thanks to our sponsor, Quince. Vacation season is upon us, and I'm excited about it. I've got a couple smaller travel plans coming up this spring, and then a big trip planned for this summer. So now I am on the hunt for a first-class quality luggage set, but with an economy price tag. And that is actually possible thanks to Quince. I am officially eyeing their carry-on and check-in suitcase bundle in a really cute light blue color. Not only does it look stylish, but also the features seem perfect. Interior compression panels, removable laundry bags, high-performance 360-degree spinner wheels, TSA-approved lock, and more. And the glowing reviews seal the deal for me, not to mention the price tag. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and that use premium fabrics and finishes. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/newsworthy for 365-day returns, plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE, quince.com/newsworthy to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, what percentage of the U.S. population served in World War II? You can play trivia along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. As for last week's trivia question, where is the only royal palace in the U.S.? The answer is downtown Honolulu, Hawaii. Iolani Palace was the official home of the last ruling monarchs of the Kingdom of Hawaii. Then, when they were overthrown in 1893, the building was used as the capital for Hawaiian governments. Over the years, it's also been used as a temporary shelter, a National Guard headquarters, and a storage facility. Now, the first and second floors of the palace are fully restored and open to the public. The palace is an official National Historic Landmark, and the National Park Service says it still acts as a symbol of Hawaiian independence. Thank you so much for joining us to get caught up on the news today. We'll be back with more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.